Practically, since the beginning of man's existence, people have wondered why we must suffer. Of course, if you see things from a purely secular perspective, the answer is easy: bad luck. But for those who strongly believe there's an all-powerful God who controls all things on the earth, it gets a lot more complicated. Now, there are mysteries involved with the issue of suffering, for sure. The question, why am I suffering, we cannot answer. The question, why is there suffering? Now, that's one we can address based on what we can learn from the Scriptures. The first, and one of the most biblically obvious reasons for suffering, has to do with the world in which we live. When we're born, we find ourselves in what theologians call a fallen world. As a result of sin and the curse, things are not the way they're supposed to be. Weeds, poison ivy, thorns, tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, droughts, earthquakes, and plagues are not part of the original pattern. In our fallen world, everything visible will eventually wear out and fail, including us. And despite our wishes, these things affect Christians and sinners alike. Mob bosses get wrinkles, and tender-hearted prayer warriors do as well. Foul-mouthed, blaspheming sinners get cancer, but so do godly Christians, worship leaders, and other believers who have never cursed in their lives. Another reason for suffering has to do with our free will. God encourages us to choose life, but sadly most do not. Now, it would be neater if our choices only affected ourselves, but that's not how it is. God has created an interconnected world, one in which the choices that we make, bad or good, will have an effect on others around us. And in some cases, one's choices can affect millions. Billy Graham's choice to receive Christ and his further choice to obey Christ's calling to be an evangelist have resulted in millions of people receiving the gift of eternal life. But wicked men have likewise affected millions by their choices. Adolf Hitler's choice to conquer Europe, Joseph Stalin's choice to purge Russia, and Hugh Hefner's choice to go into the pornography business all had far-reaching effects that touched huge numbers of people for evil. It happens on a smaller level as well. A husband's choice to leave his wife, a boss's choice to make life miserable for his employees, an official's choice to take a bribe, a bully's choice to pick on the weak, can all lead to misery for others that they do not deserve. These people suffer because of sin, but not their own sin. Rather, they suffer because of the sin of others. Now, God could bring all sin and suffering to a screeching halt by suspending our free will and forcing us about like puppets, doing everything He pleases, but this He will not do. Another reason God allows good people to suffer is to preserve the appearance of randomness. Jesus declared, God makes His sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. In this life, both good and bad things happen to good and bad men and women. If we had our say in the matter, all suffering would be reserved for the wicked and all blessings for the good. Christians would never lose their jobs, never get sick, never have car wrecks, and never die young. Sinners would have nothing but bad luck from the beginning of their mornings to the end of every day. Their businesses would always fail, they'd live in perpetually bad health, their cars would quit working the day after the warranty expires, their yards would produce nothing but weeds, and their roofs would never stop leaking. What we fail to realize is that if God showed this kind of favoritism toward His children, everyone in the world would soon profess Christ, not out of conviction, but purely for selfish reasons. The Bible tells us we live by faith and not by sight. We who follow Christ do believe there's a reward for our service, but most of it will never be seen in this life. It will appear on the day when we stand before our righteous judge. Imagine that you've been living in terrible poverty when suddenly you receive a word that a distant relative has died and left you his fortune. You're going to become a multimillionaire. You quickly head for your car and go to the bank where the money will be transferred into your account. On the way to the car, you stub your toe on the sidewalk. You wince in pain, sit down, and bemoan what a miserable, terrible day you're having. Well, of course, you wouldn't do that. What's a stubbed toe in comparison to an inheritance that's going to make you phenomenally wealthy? So it is with the amazing inheritance that Jesus Christ has purchased for us on the cross. We are wealthy. We are blessed. Our future is secure and our hope is sure. Any stubbed toes that we have to experience in this short life of 70 or 80 years cannot compare with the glory that awaits us in the presence of Christ. Knowing this, let us go forth bravely through this world, enduring what must be endured, bearing what must be borne, and rejoicing in that which lies ahead.